I know you heard me on the radio. Flexing, she loved the sound of my voice, it's the best thing. Daydreaming of the jazz all day. Pick up the phone late night with Larry K. I know you heard me on the radio. Flexing, she loved the sound of my voice, it's the best thing. Daydreaming of the jazz all day. Pick up the phone late night with Larry K. Fury fam, welcome to another episode of Phin-Addict Fury with your host, Larry K. The response was overwhelming on the recent poll that I posted here, and they've just given me access to post polls and different, text things to all of you guys, and that's because we've been generating so much excitement and we've been getting so much interaction and engagement, and because you guys keep subscribing. So anybody who has watched more than one video, or even if this is your first time and you're just chilling and you're enjoying the content, please do me a favor and go right under this video and click the subscribe button. We are trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. That's when a lot of the bells and whistles really come into play. But look, the response to the poll was overwhelming. I could have talked about the NFL playoffs, which, I'll touch on a little because they are very exciting right now. I think this divisional round is going to be particularly exciting because there's just so many good matchups, so many good teams. It's really unpredictable, and I think the wild card round really kind of weeded out some teams that maybe were there but had a bad matchup and really maybe didn't have much chance of advancing very far anyway. So it's something to keep an eye on, and maybe, in future weeks we'll talk about the playoffs, and maybe as we narrow it down even more, we'll break down the strengths and whatnot of each team. But the poll was overwhelming. You guys want me to discuss the top needs for the Miami Dolphins this offseason, and I'm prepared to do that. And look, this is Fury fam. This is the subscribers, the content you want. I'll get you. First of all, before I get into that, though, just really quick, a couple things on the whole controversy that's recently occurred, obviously, that we're all constantly talking about, and it's finally started to kind of die down a little bit, but it was so rampant for about a week, and I understand why. The whole, Flores firing and the Tua thing. I think it's been well settled now. And look, when I made the first video were on my cell phone, and then the few subsequent videos as soon as Flores was fired, I said initially that I thought, one, this was definitely about the quarterback. This was, they made a choice between Tua and Flores. And I said, two, they are going to try to bring in offensive guru or a quarterback whisperer. I said that early just because that was my initial inkling. It's, and I'm not always going to be right. A lot of times I'm going to be wrong, and I'm still going to be wrong going forward, and that's fine. We're just commentators, using our knowledge and experience to try to just do our best job to analyze what's going on. Sometimes we're not going to get it right, but it's turned out to be mostly correct. I mean, the reports coming out, Stephen Ross flat out lied. I used the wrong name. Mr. Magoo flat out lied. When Magoo said that this wasn't about the quarterback at all, this was completely about Brian Flores and his relationships. And then they went on a media blitz, the Miami Dolphins, to try to disparage Brian Flores' character and say he's just so terrible to work with. It was such a crisis of personality in that building. They had to fire him. Had nothing to do with Tua. Had nothing to do with the quarterback. That is a lie. Logic and Larry has determined that was a lie. That was a lie, okay? Because they're now coming out like, slowly but surely, the reports are coming out that, he butted heads with Tua, specifically, not just everybody, Tua. He didn't believe in him. They had a difference, and now they're looking for coaches that are open to working with Tua. I was right about that, and I was right. They didn't just fire Flores because he was a terrible person. They had a choice to make. They were at a crossroads. They chose Tua over Flores. Now, I'm not going to sit and talk about it nonstop. Like I said, I just want to touch on it early in the video. But that's the case, right? This was the decision. So we will see in the future. And just like I used to hate on Tom Brady. He's a system quarterback. He's this, he's that. It's all Belichick. Well, he got to prove. He went to Tampa. Now Tampa's still a loaded team. Belichick stayed in New England, and if you look, I mean, if any quarterback that had some skill set would work in Belichick's brilliant system, then it would have worked already. Brady was a huge part of that team's success, and he's proven it. So now we will see when the Miami Dolphins and wherever Flores goes get underway. We will see if the decision was correct or not. As a Miami Dolphins fan, I hope I'm wrong, and I hope that the Magoo's decision was correct, and I hope that Tua excels, becomes a franchise, Hall of Fame quarterback, and we win a bunch of rings. And I hope that Flores, I don't hope that Flores falls on his face. I like Flores, but I hope Magoo was right. But I don't see it. But long story short, just pointing out that I was right in my initial inkling, and that is the direction they seem to be headed. That being said, look, Tua's going to be the guy, so I'm not going to sit here every day and just talk terribly about Tua nonstop. We're going to have to just start talking about our team and going forward with Tua as the quarterback, and also hope that Tua is the guy and turns out to be every bit of the franchise quarterback that his supporters think he can be. That would be good for all of us as fans. And if you've watched my videos, if you're a newcomer, that's all right. But if you've watched my videos throughout the season, you will know that I started out the season not a huge fan of Tua, but I evolved as he was looking efficient. But then I said I wanted to see him put up or shut up and really show something and excel in crunch time. He didn't do that. That's why I'm back where I am now. But I'm not just some emotional, ranting, raving Tua hater. I'm an objective observer who's going by what we see on the field and the evidence that we have at hand. As that evidence changes, and if it changes, my position will evolve, because I'm an objective person, and you want to be able to come here and listen to me and not just have me pounding the pavement for just one position nonstop, no matter what, because it gets exhausting and I lose credibility. So I'm going to evolve as the situation evolves. And there are many Tua supporters who watch this channel, and the objective ones have been cool with me and have said, even in my last video, wow, you're killing me with these takes, but hey, hopefully, we prove you wrong. And that's fine. You can disagree objectively. And just a quick side note on that. I mean, I've been getting a lot of hate from some of the Tua-neer population, I want to say. And there's a difference between somebody who supports Tua and who wants Tua to succeed and believes in his skill set versus a Tua-neer. A Tua-neer is somebody who's just blindly, emotionally wedded to Tua to the point that any criticism he gets, or more so, any negative evidence Tua himself puts on the field that is pointed out by commentators, they attack and lash out emotionally because they're just upset that Tua didn't prove them right. So they take it out on us. So I've gotten a lot of hate messages on Facebook, on YouTube, on comments, just all kinds of things. But here's the thing with the people that I've been dealing with who are not rational. If you're a Tua supporter, stop accusing people like me of being emotional. Stop accusing people like me of being not, one of their famous lines is, you must not know anything about football. You don't know anything about football. He's great. You don't know anything about football. Guys, that's not how you win an argument, right? You don't win an argument by saying, you don't know anything. He's great. You're stupid. He's great. You're emotional. He's great. No, you say, if you know so much about football, then you say, well, here's why he's great. Here's what I've seen. Here's the evidence on the field. Here's what we know. You don't just say, you don't know anything about football. He's great. He's great. Makes you sound like a bumbling idiot. Okay? And I don't like to call names. That's what it makes you sound like. Don't do that. Don't say somebody's emotional or doesn't know anything about football because they're pointing out evidence on the field. Now, to segue into the topic of today, there is a valid argument to be made. Like, you can say, look, I believe in him. There hasn't been a ton of evidence. And they're already acknowledging that, right? No one's saying, oh, he's been great on the field, you're blind. They're saying, well, he can be. That's fine. If you believe he can be, one of the things you point out that was deficient this year, which is a valid point, is the Miami Dolphins offensive line. And here's how I'm going to do this top needs for the Miami Dolphins this offseason. I'm not going to include quarterback or coach or coordinators because we don't know who the coach is going to be. And I'll touch on the coach a little bit at the end of this video. We don't know who the coach is going to be. And so we don't know which coordinators are being retained, who this person has relationships with that they might bring in, if we even need an upgrade because we might already be getting an upgrade, at the coach positions. So we can't really talk about that. And I'm not going to talk about quarterback because those of us who think Tua is the guy think he's the guy. And those of us who think we'd like to see an upgrade would like to see an upgrade. But it doesn't matter because all indications are, unless some insane thing happens, like Aaron Rodgers' agent calls up Greer and says he just wants to retire in Miami so bad he wants to go down there and play a couple years before he's done, which won't happen, by the way, then Tua is the quarterback because the organization has already made the decision that Tua is the guy. So I'm not going to spend any time talking about upgrading the quarterback position. We're going to talk and assume that Tua is the quarterback, and we are going to discuss Miami's needs with that premise in mind, okay? So with Tua as quarterback, one of the most valid things that people who believe in Tua have to say is that our offensive line was terrible. And it was not good. I will say that the offensive line started the season much worse than it ended the season, right? The narrative has continued by certain people that the O-line has just been one of the worst, most pathetic, most terrible lines from the beginning of the season right through the end of the year. The truth is that's not completely accurate, right? It started off terrible, and it didn't end elite or great, but it ended better than it started off, right? Because they shuffled a lot of people on that offensive line. They made some changes, and some of the younger guys started to hit their strides. Now, one of the first things you got to discuss with you. So first of all, I'm saying offensive line is the number one offseason need for the Miami Dolphins. You can't win football games and you can't play good offense if you don't have strong, good players in the trenches. No matter what anybody says, football is still a game that's won in the trenches. And it's not just some old mantra. And it's not just some nonsense that people say because it sounds cool. And it's not something that's antiquated because the game has evolved. At root, the game of football is still a game of pushing to one end or the other, and the other side trying to stop you from pushing. Now, we've evolved to the point where we skip over a lot of the nitty-gritty grunting and throw the ball to get some of those yards. But at base, football is still a game of that push and pull and that tug of war and that, energy clash at the line of scrimmage. Everything else that happens derives from the line of scrimmage. So if you do not have a good offensive or defensive line or both, you are going to struggle unless you have, which a lot of teams do, an elite quarterback who can just make up for that with elite decisions, play, and just running all over the place and creating things in backyard football, which we don't have right now in most teams. A lot of teams don't. So that being said, and if you watch, by the way, the Dallas 49ers game, you can see that the 49ers were just dominating them in the trenches. And that was a big part of the reason that the 49ers, ran away with that game until the end. That's another story for another day. But look, so here's the thing with the line, though. They say that, offensive lineman is one of the toughest positions in football to learn. And offensive lineman is also one of the toughest positions in football to adapt to a higher level of play. What I mean is when you get a high school player going into a college team, one of the ongoing conversations is you can get a really, really fast wide receiver from high school, and he can come up to D1 Power 5 college football, and he can make an impact. He might not be a superstar, but he can still outrun a lot of guys. He can make plays. He can do things for you. You can get an elite cornerback who can do some of those things, although the learning curve is a little tougher. Quarterback is tough with the learning curve, but you can still get a guy who's just got supreme athleticism, and he can. But the issue is, and D linemen, if they have pure size and strength, they can kind of just will themselves through, even at a higher level. But it's always been said that from college to D1, offensive linemen just need a lot of development. You need to learn things, you need to increase your strength, and you need to develop tactical advantages like how to properly use your leverage, how to properly use your body and your assets, and how to cover up other shortcomings that you may have. Long arms, short arms, the scheme you block in. It's a difficult position, and it's a really taxing position. The physicality that goes on in the trenches is really taxing on your body. It's like, the difference between doing bench press or push-ups and doing a brisk jog around the block. Both tax your body, but the constant strength fighting in the trenches really taxes it. So why do I bring up that whole soliloquy, that whole nonsense about the O-line? Well, because when I'm discussing the Miami Dolphins and the Miami Dolphins needing to upgrade the O-line, I want to be cognizant of the fact that we had some young guys on the O-line. So guys like Eichenberg, like, I'm not willing and ready to say he's a bust and give up on him. Like, he started to come on okay, but he's a rookie. It's going to take him some time to come on. So anyway, overall with the O-line, here's what I would say. I would say we need at least one elite tackle and one elite guard. And we would maybe look to upgrade the center position if possible. We had Karras the year before. This year was a drop-off. Again, we got young guys. Now, I'm not... So if we go position by position. Eichenberg, I'm not down on per se. Hopefully he takes another step this year, but I'd like to have the ability to bring in some competition at the tackle position encompassing both sides. And no matter who gets unseated, somebody gets unseated. Hopefully Eichenberg takes a step up. He's young. I'm not totally down on the kid. But if we could upgrade, we could upgrade, and we should. Austin Jackson, it's time to move on. Like, he could maybe be a backup for us, but that is probably that's a big draft bust. And I don't want to get into it, but that first round year in general seems like 2020. But look, Austin Jackson. I mean, he's. It's time to move on from him. He was at tackle where they wanted him to be. He was absolutely terrible at tackle, and this is part of what I was talking about how the line shifted and the line changed and evolved over the season, and didn't finish as bad as it started. He was terrible at the beginning of the season, and then at guard, he was okay, right? He was serviceable, but he's still not an elite guard. He's not even a really good starting guard in this league. Austin Jackson, if you want to keep him as a backup because you drafted him, you got a couple more years on his rookie deal, that's your business, but I would say it's time to move on from Austin Jackson, and we really need to upgrade a guard position, and he's a good candidate to replace. Then you had Michael Dieter. I'm not so down on him. He wasn't great. If you could get a guy in for competition, like we had Karras the year before, go out and try to upgrade the position, or even if you get an interior lineman, a guard who can play center, maybe you try to mix and match a little bit. But it can be upgraded. I'm not dying to upgrade it, but we could upgrade it. Robert Hunt. He's the only guy in this entire line that I think I'm comfortable with. Like, honestly, Robert Hunt, I think he had a pretty solid season, to all things considered. Is he a superstar? Probably not, but is he bad? No. Is he a starter in this league? I think he is. I think Robert Hunt's a starter in this league, and if you can't, in one offseason, completely change all 5 positions on the line. I mean, we have a lot of cap space, but we have other needs. This is just the number one need in the offseason. This isn't the only need in the offseason. So, look, I like Hunt. I think Hunt will be fine. I don't think you need to upgrade that position. I think you're good. And then finally, you have Jesse Davis. Jesse Davis, I really, really like Jesse Davis as a backup. I think he's the kind of guy that has so much veteran experience. He's got so much game time. He's seen so much. He's been kind of serviceable sometimes and terrible other times, depending on the play. He's the guy, in my opinion, you want as a backup. You want him as a backup lineman who you could plug and play when somebody goes down. And, in basketball, they have the 6th man. He's one of those guys that could even be like the 6th man. Some teams have a guy who can play multiple positions on the O-line. And that's the best kind of backup to have, is a guy who knows what he's doing, who's serviceable, who's seen a lot of game action, and can plug and play in any position in the line. So if one guy goes down who's a starter, you can plug a guy in and he's capable. And it doesn't really matter which guy goes down, he could play the position. I like Jesse Davis as that 6-man backup, but he needs to be upgraded as far as a starter. You need a tackle better than him as an upgrade over him. You just do. And that's why I say we need at least one guard and one tackle. Elite. I'm not saying we should get other linemen too to compete in the draft, mid-rounds, high rounds, whatever. I'm really looking at free agents or first-round picks at this point with this position. And I'm talking you need like an elite guard and an elite tackle. Whether that guy unseats Davis or Eichenberg, hopefully Davis, I'm hoping Eichenberg takes a step up. But at least you need another serviceable tackle to compete with Eichenberg too, to see if he can beat him out. But you definitely need an elite guard and an elite tackle. because Jesse Davis and Austin Jackson really should not be starting, in my opinion. Now, somebody like Solomon Kindley, when he first came in, I liked him. He was pushing off the line. He was a big body. And I guess he gained too much weight and he got too slow and his athleticism was lacking, so they kind of sat him all year. But again, he's a guy that I would like to keep on the team to be a backup guard who has experience, who's serviceable, or to maybe compete in next year rebound under maybe a better O-line coach and a better, blocking scheme perhaps, depending on who comes in, and hopefully do better. But that's top need for the Miami Dolphins is an elite tackle and an elite guard. And however you mix and match, that's my opinion on the different players on the line. However you want to do it, that'll upgrade the line significantly. And I think a lot of the drop-off we saw last year was when Flowers and Karras left. Not that they were great, but just them leaving, and they weren't even, amazing. You saw how much of a drop-off we had on the O-line. You need a tackle and a guard, an elite one. And then you need a couple other guys to compete too, just to bring out the best in everybody and sort it all out. And just find the best combination. So the number one need is O-line. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be poo-pooing this because I think a lot of people out there think the number two need should be an elite running back. I'll get to that position, but it's not number two on my list. The fact is, I know people want to see a Derrick Henry. They want to see a Jonathan Taylor on the team. It's nice to have those guys on the team. They make a difference. But and look, I'm a guy who loves Larry Zonka, Jim Kick, Mercury Morris. I love Derrick Henry. I love watching them play just because of the elite running back. Michael Burton, who went to Rutgers, my alma mater, is a fullback in the league now. And he's another guy that I love because I love, just as a fan, and when I was playing ball, I liked the smash mouth, old school, one tight end, two wideouts, I formation, fullback, halfback, lead blocker, fullback, who also catches the ball once in a while out of the backfield and can make plays, and also can carry the ball in certain situations. I got a Larry Zonka jersey. I love the fullback. I love running backs. I love halfbacks. I love running. I love elite running backs. I miss the days where elite running backs were a thing. But the fact remains that today it is 2022. And I believe that if you upgrade the offensive line significantly, I'm not saying we don't got to upgrade. We definitely have to upgrade the running back room. I will get there. But it's not number one or two on the list. You upgrade that O-line, other things will follow no matter who's back there. So it's not up there. What's second on the list after O-line for me is wide receiver. And here's why. We have Jalen Waddle, who's an elite wide receiver, who broke a rookie record, who is he does it all. I think he can do even more if we were able to stretch the field. Now, we can debate. We're not going to do it now. We could debate whether it's Tua's arm or whether it's the line not giving him time or the scheme or whatever. But Waddle's an elite receiver. I really like Devontae Parker, even though a lot of people are down on him because he doesn't get crazy separation. The fact is Devontae Parker is a nice piece on the outside where several times a game and definitely several times a season, the man comes down with some really great catches, and he's a nice safety blanket. And not just a safety blanket. You send him down on the perimeter of the field, and he'll grab 20, 30, 40-yard catches, and he'll do it consistently. You send him on the slant, as we've seen on touchdowns and first downs over and over again in this offense. He will use his body to get position on a defender and make a catch. You need a guy like him on the team. He might have slowed down a bit with the leg injuries over the years, just the minor leg injuries, and he might be on the opposite side of the midway through his career, but he's a guy who's been a career-long Miami Dolphin. He's got a certain skill set that I think is valuable in this league, and you keep him, and I like those pieces. Behind him, you have Matt Collins, who you gotta keep him on the team. He's a good player, and he's another receiver that comes in for meaningful snaps and makes a difference. But they need the guy that they signed Will Fuller to be that he never was because he never played. When you're lining up, you need several elite mismatch-making receivers on the field because you have to force a defense to choose who they are going to double team, who they are going to scheme towards, who they are going to try to take away in their game plan, who they are going to focus on. You need to force them to do that and still have elite options outside of them that you can go to, especially for a young quarterback like Tua who needs to have multiple guys to go to and needs to see somebody open to really succeed in the league. We signed Will Fuller to be that extra piece in addition to Waddle and Parker, and he just never played. So number 2 for me is going out and getting another elite level receiver. And preferably, this person is going to be somebody who's kind of the middle of Waddle and Parker, right? Waddle's been forced to be a possession receiver this year because no one else really could do it. But Waddle can stretch the field as well. Waddle is kind of the superstar in this offense. Parker is that big body, grab the ball, make, acrobatic catches on the perimeter, outside receiver. Now you need the guy who's kind of mid-size, can sprint down the field and stretch the field, but also could do those mid-range catches, also could get yards after the catch the way that Waddle does. You need that guy, and you need not just one who's a developmental guy like a Perry or et cetera. You need not an Albert Wilson who's, mid-range guy now at this point in his career. You need an elite version of that guy, and he's got to be a number 1 or 2 type receiver on a team, and you need him. And they've got to go out and either get that guy in the draft or in free agency. And the other reason I say that is because I'm not putting tight end on this list right now because I hope they bring back Gesicki, and I actually think Durham and Smythe are a good tandem of block catch tight ends who are very serviceable in this league. But it's also going to depend if they don't keep Gesicki, that need becomes even more pressing. Because Gesicki was a guy who was this slash, hybrid tight end wide receiver. He was really more of a wide receiver, to be honest. Most times he was on the field, he was lining up split. And he was almost like this third down kind of wide receiver hybrid guy, who I think Gesicki's skill set is awesome. I think he's an elite player for what he does. But the Miami Dolphins have not signed him yet. Now, I think a lot's going to depend on the new coach. If the new coach, who I think is going to be an offensive coach, if the new coach runs a scheme that requires and will use Gesicki properly, then I think we keep him. But if we don't keep Gesicki, it's even more pressing that we get that wide receiver. And that's why that's number 2 on the list. You want to revamp this offense, and the offense is the weak spot. So top 2 are definitely O-line and receiver. It's got to be. That's the only way you're gonna, and that's the only way with the whole Tua debate, people are gonna finally say either yes or no. Get him the line, get him the receiver, and if he still can't do it, then that's it. And if he does it, then maybe some of us will eat crow. That's it. But that's a top need. You need that Will Fuller position. You need to fill that. And if Gesicki's gone, you need any more. I worry about Gesicki because they didn't sign him before the offseason. They're kind of taking a wait-and-see approach. And people like Omar Kelly are kind of reporting that they might not be enthralled with him. And now that Greer's in charge, Greer's the one who controls it, and Greer has this philosophy of kind of shipping guys out and not paying them. I don't know. I mean, yes, he pays them, but our guys, some of our homegrown guys, if he thinks they want too much money, he lets them go. So we'll see. I mean, he did it with Landry and some others. And maybe he was right about that. So we'll see with Gesicki. He's not an every down tight end in line blocker, so it really just depends what the new coach wants to run. And if we don't keep him, receiver's even more important. We need that true receiver, on the team. Number 3, people aren't going to like this, but I have a very bad feeling that the Miami Dolphins are going to try to trade X. Based on the smoke that comes out of different media figures and different reports, and you could kind of sense some beat guys' sentiments because they're close to the team, and the way things went down last year, I have a feeling that when X demanded more money, Greer is of the philosophy that you work out your contract, you sign your contract, you play your contract. And I don't think he was very happy when X was demanding more money. I have a feeling that Brian Flores, who is very focused on dominant cornerbacks, and I'm not even saying X is a dominant cornerback in terms of coverage, but the man can play coverage. He can also come up with key turnovers in key games. He did it several times this season, and he was the reason we won at least one game and probably at least two. I think Flores lobbied for X, and I also think that that's one of the underplayed storylines of the season and the disconnect between Flo and the front office. I think Tua is the main issue, but I do think this X issue played a role. We're not even talking about it much anymore, but earlier in the season, the X drama with X being traded, and that was a big hot topic amongst Dolphins fans. A big topic. And the fact that X came out and got the contract and wound up being a player on the team all year, I think was largely because of Brian Flores. And I think the Dolphins are looking at X, and rightly or wrongly, from a purely business, purely frugal, business-minded perspective, X is getting up there. X has had serious knee problems. X is not the best cover corner. He is one of the best overall corners because of his ability to make plays. The Dolphins, I think, are looking at X as somebody who could get maximum value right now in a trade, and they can part ways with his contract or his future contract demands. They're not able to move Byron Jones' contract as easily. Byron Jones, by the way, is probably a little bit of a better cover corner, although he doesn't make those plays. And in my opinion, Byron Jones is losing a step too. He got burned a couple times this year, and I actually think he's going to continue to get burned more and more as he gets older. So both those guys are, we're going to have to replace them at some point, and I think X is a good candidate to get traded. That hasn't happened yet, but nonetheless, because I think it's so likely, even though, by the way, my personal opinion, I don't want to trade X. I think X is one of the best players on the team. I think this is part of the problem with the Miami Dolphins and perpetual mediocrity. I think they're going to trade X. They got rid of a good coach. I think this is why we always take steps back. That's just my opinion. We'll see what happens. I hope they don't trade him. I hope they franchise. I hope they sign Gesicki. I hope they sign X. I hope we stay with the same team. And if they do, I'll come back and say I was wrong. But as of right now, with my inkling that they might trade X, I think number 3 is going to be they're going to need a corner. And they're going to need a corner regardless because they have Needham's a good slot guy. Needham's, and he's a restricted, I think, free agent, so he'll be back, and I really like him. But Noah Igbenogany has not been good. He's not been good enough in practice to see the field. When he has been on the field, he's been burned terribly. I don't think he's going to pan out as a pick. I think he was another bust in that draft. And whether they trade X or not, they are going to need a corner because if one of those guys gets hurt, they need another guy who can step into his shoes and not be a complete liability on the field. Now, again, I don't know who the new coach is or what kind of defense they're going to run, so I doubt we're going to be bringing these zero blitzes nonstop, which is disappointing because I think our defense is best suited for that the way it's presently constructed. But this is the Miami Dolphins. This is Mr. Magoo. We got to do what we got to do. But I think we're going to need a corner one way or the other. And in this league with these elite wide receivers and these elite quarterbacks, we're going to need a good corner. So I think you go out in free agency, you get a guy who's maybe on his looking for that first big contract. It sucks to put out that much money, but you need a guy like that, like a Byron Jones, who when we got him. You need a guy like that, especially if you're going to trade X. If you're not going to trade X, you really can't go get a guy like that because you can't afford it. So if you're going to trade X, I say you go out and get a free agent to replace him who's younger. And if you're not going to trade X, or even if you are and you don't want to spend the money anyway, then you got to draft a guy relatively high, and he's got to be a good corner. And if there's one thing that this front office has done pretty well with over the years, I think they've drafted corners pretty good. Not always, but they've done all right with it. They've done well. How about not corners, but they've done well with defensive backs. Like our safety position is set for the foreseeable future. They've done well with defensive backs. So you got to make a move there. I say because the defense is important to this team too, you got to plug that in. It's something we're not thinking about because it wasn't a weakness this year, but I think it's on the horizon to be a weakness. So I think number 3 behind the 2 offensive positions, you got to show the defense a little love. It's got to be corner. 4, I know people are going to disagree with me, but 4 is the running back. I see running back as number 4. We need a better running back. We need a consistent bell cow, every down back who can catch, who can run tough, and not just run tough, but who can hit the hole much better. You saw when Duke Johnson came in. I'm a fan of Myles Gaskin, by the way. And Ahmed, I'm a fan of his, but he's one of those guys probably going to be a journeyman, so it is what it is. But I'm a fan of Gaskin. I think Gaskin could be a serviceable member of a football team, can see some snaps, can make some plays. I think he's a hard player. I think he's a smart player. I like Myles Gaskin. I'd like to keep him on the team. I like Duke Johnson. I'd like to see him stay on the team and compete. But I think you do need a young stud-type running back. Again, I'm putting it forth because I'm not of the opinion that in this day and age, maybe in the 80s and 90s, maybe even in the early 2000s, but not in this day and age, you don't go and spend a first or second round pick on a running back. I know a lot of you guys wanted some of these guys, but I don't think you do it. Not with needing all the needs on the O-line. Not with the fact we've got to shore up our corner position. And multiple spots in the O-line need to be upgraded, and we need a receiver. And if Gesicki's not around, you might need 2 receivers or at least another one of those seam-stretching tight ends. I don't think you go out and draft in the first round a running back, and probably not even the second round. That's just my philosophy. But if you look at the New York Giants, I mean, they did that. They took Saquon Barkley in the first round, and it hasn't panned out well at all for them because 1, leg injury and they're in trouble, and then 2, if you don't have a good line and you don't have anything else clicking on all cylinders in today's NFL, that elite running back is not going to just carry you all the way. You even saw with Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor carried the Colts a substantial portion of the season, and he's an elite running back. But when stuff hit the fan, he couldn't carry them beyond and get them into the playoffs. So that's not saying that I would be disappointed if we got a top-tier running back. I think it would be nice. But I don't think it's got to be one of the superstar premier top 5 guys in the league. Now, if you're of the opinion that if you're conceding, which it seems people like Big O are conceding now, if you're conceding that Tua's not a top 5 or top 10 quarterback in the league, and because you don't have a top 10 quarterback, you want to go a different route and give that average quarterback a top 5 running back, which it seems like Big O is saying that he wants, and other Tua people are saying, get him a top 5 running back because he's not a top 5 quarterback, and he needs that. Well, if you're of that belief, and maybe the Miami Dolphins are of that belief, then maybe you go out and get a top running back. But I think if you go spend a first or second round pick on a top running back, or you spend a substantial amount of money on a running back, you're dealing a direct hit to what you can do on the offensive line. And those two things go together. If you spend the capital, the draft capital, or the money on a running back, that's money and draft capital you can't spend on the O-line. And maybe you get a great running back, but if you don't fix that O-line, it's not going to matter. Whereas I think if you get a great O-line, but you don't have a great running back, whoever you put back there, even if he's serviceable, is still going to run pretty well because the O-line is what drives the running game more so than the running back, in my opinion, in this day and age. Unless you're Barry Sanders, unless you're Derrick Henry, these super elite guys, then the line's going to drive the running back more than the running back's going to drive the line. So I think you're wiser to spend your draft capital and your money on the O-line, which is why number 4, I'm going to say running back. Number 4. But, number 4 doesn't mean it's not a need. It's on my list. It's top 5 on my list. I just think because it's number 4, not number 1 or 2, you're not going to go out and spend a first rounder on it. But we do need to upgrade the running back position. It's evident that when Duke Johnson went in, he started hitting holes properly and he started getting yards after being hit initially. Our offense had a different dynamic that it was sorely missing. And Duke Johnson has not been that guy throughout his career, so I don't know if he can be that guy. And, he's a little older at this point, so maybe you go in and get a guy who can hit those holes, who has that vision, who can absorb hits and keep getting yards, that guy who's always falling forward. If you can go get that guy, in a mid-round or as a free agent that's not going to cost too much, and you can revamp the O-line, I think that greatly enhances our offense, greatly. And out of the top 4 that I said, only 1 was defense, corner number 3. But number 1 was O-line, number 2 was wide receiver, 3 cornerback, and 4 running back. So 3 out of those 4 are on the offensive side of the ball. And I think they all need improvement, and they're very big needs for the Miami Dolphins. Now, the last one I would say, and you're going to laugh, It's kind of a tie, right? I think we could bolster the linebacker position on the team. Landon Roberts, I like inside. He's a good thumper inside. And, we can cover receivers and whatnot with Baker. But this is going to sound crazy. But, guys, you know what I think we need, number 5? I think we need a punter. A punter. I know. What are you talking about? Dude, punters are a big part of the game, too. And when you're playing, some games come down to field position, especially if you have a good defense and you're not somebody who can stretch the field like crazy on offense. You're going to need to play the field position game, and you're going to need to win the field position battle. And we didn't have very good punting this year. And it hurt us significantly in some games. So I think you're going to need to upgrade the punt. I know it's just a punter. Yeah, we got to revamp the punter position, man. We need a better punter. When you have an elite punter, you win field position battles, and it makes more of an impact on the game than you realize. People don't pay attention to certain things. Some people, just want to look at big playmakers, only edge rushers, only receivers, only elite running backs, because they like that glitz and glamour. But there's a lot more that goes into the game than just that. And if you have a really good punter, and by the way, I think we'll rebound with the kicker. I think Sanders will come back. I think he'll be fine next year. He had an off year this year, and it still wasn't the worst in the league. It wasn't terrible. It was just an off year for him. He had an elite year the year before. I'm not willing to give up on him yet, and he was still serviceable. I think kicker we're okay, but I think punter, we need to upgrade punter. We just do. So I think number 5, it's down the list, but everything's in there now, offense, defense, and special teams. I think punter is something we're going to need to pay attention to as much as that's not glamorous. I think we've got to deal with that. So those are my top 5 most important needs for the Miami Dolphins in the offseason. If you enjoyed those or you just like the conversation, please do me a favor, smash subscribe and join the Fury fam. If you disagree, there's plenty of time in the comments. Now, guys, I work all day. I got a strenuous job. I do all kinds of other things, other endeavors. I got the Logic and Larry podcast, all these other things. I write music. I'm working on an album. But I take a lot of time because it's important to me to talk to you guys. And those of you who have commented know that I try my best to engage as often as possible. And so if you disagree or you have different ideas or you want to add to what I said or elaborate, please comment below and I will do my best to get back to you. And we can have this discussion inside our group here. The last thing I want to touch on is just this coach search. Omar Kelly reported last night that Brian Daboll is the odds-on favorite for the Miami Dolphins job. Let me just say that I predicted that early on. I think it was going to be a QB guru, offensive guru. I don't want to comment too much on Daboll because if he's not the coach, I'm just wasting my time. We don't know that he's the odds-on favorite. We don't know that he's going to get the job. We don't know if he's going to take the job if offered. And here's my thing about any coaches we look at. When we hire a coach, I will certainly sit here and I will speak to you about the pros and cons of that guy. Overall, I don't like the idea, and I said this from the start, overall, I don't like the idea of hiring a first-time head coach who's an offensive coordinator who happens to have the luxury of having an elite quarterback, because I think it's an illusion. And here's the analogy I'll use. It's like a race car mechanic or a car mechanic and a race car driver, right? If you have the fastest car on the lot, and it's an amazingly fast, well-constructed, beautiful car, and you take a driver and mechanic and you go ahead and you work on that car, you tune up that car, and then you drive that car, and you win several races with that car, then props to the mechanic and props to the race car driver, because they got the most out of one of the better cars, and they should. On the other hand, though, several other mechanics and several other drivers probably could have gotten the same thing out of that car because it's already one of the nicest, fastest cars on the lot. Several average mechanics could have also gotten that car and driven it that way. Don't make the mistake of thinking that you can take the driver of the fastest, nicest car or the mechanic of the fastest, most well-built car and now go to a mediocre, average car and expect him to get the same results out of that car. okay? He might be a very good mechanic. He might be an average mechanic. But the car itself that he's working on or driving also has a lot to do with the success he's going to have. You could put an average mechanic on a great car and a great mechanic on an average car, and they might get similar, but more than likely, different results that the best car is still going to win. And what I mean by that is, don't expect just because somebody who coaches an elite, physically talented, cannon arm, fast, big body athlete like Josh Allen, don't assume that that guy's going to be able to do with Tua what he did with Josh Allen. Because Josh Allen and Tua are vastly different quarterbacks with vastly different physical tools and vastly different skill sets to begin with. And Brian Daboll has been an offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach in this league and in football for a very long time. And if he gets hired, I want to go through the list of quarterbacks he's coached and see have any of them developed the way Josh Allen has. And that'll tell you, is he just this elite quarterback developer, or is he benefiting because Josh Allen was he had a lot to work with, and it was easier to bring him up? And would a different coach have done the same because Josh Allen was naturally developing anyway over the last couple of years? I'm just skeptical of the whole idea that hiring a quarterback guru or an offensive coordinator who worked with an elite quarterback or an elite head coach who's been doing it for years and is offensive-minded is the best way to go. I think you got to look more at former head coaches, guys who know how to get the most out of a team. And I wouldn't even sleep on hiring an older defensive-minded coach, which I'd actually prefer. Because then the defense that we have that's already a good nucleus, that's already the heart and soul of our team, that's the heart and soul of this turnaround to respectability and 2 winning seasons and sweeping the Patriots and all this other stuff, it doesn't alienate them. They keep playing hard, but just get a defensive coach that also has, the security in himself to go out and hire a alpha dog, which I've been calling for if you've been watching my channel, an alpha dog offense coordinator, who then he could improve Tua and run the offense. But if you go out and get a first-time head coach, quarterback whisperer, which is Ross's MO, he did it with Philbin, but Philbin had Rodgers and Philbin didn't even call plays. How'd that work out? He did it with Gase, but Gase coached Peyton Manning, and he benefited from Peyton Manning. How'd that work out? Now he wants to go out and do it again. That's his MO. He can't get anything right, Mr. Magoo. Mr. Magoo is just, he's got no glasses, and he's just fumbling around. He keeps doing the same thing. Offense, quarterback guru. It's terrible. My thing is just, don't, I'd rather go with a guy who's going to keep our defense afloat. I just am not big on these first-time OCs who benefited from good quarterbacks. I'm just not a huge proponent. If you're going to go offensive-minded, why don't you go a guy who had head coaching experience and success like Peterson? We haven't heard anything about Peterson, and if they don't have any interest in him or they're not looking to interview him, then either A, there's something we don't know about that's a blemish on his resume, or B, they're making a big mistake again. Because he's actually a head coach with success at this level. So I'm just not a big proponent of the QB whisperer, because I don't think QB whisperers exist, and I don't think they can turn around somebody, who's got average talent just because they coach somebody with above average talent and they did well. That's just my thing. But we haven't picked a coach yet. But I just wanted to give my 2 cents on the coaching search just to, touch on it because it's on everybody's mind. So, those are my top 5 needs for the offseason. Number 1, O-line. We need an elite guard and elite tackle. Number 2, we need a wide receiver, another alpha, number 1 type wide receiver, number 2 type wide receiver, what Will Fuller was supposed to be. Number 3, we need to watch that cornerback position. We need somebody coming up in the wings behind X and Jones no matter what. And if X is gone this year, we need somebody to replace him who's elite. And either way, we need to watch that cornerback position because those guys are getting old and those guys' contracts are huge. And Iggy looks to be a bust at this point. Number 4, we need a running back. Number 3 is the corner. Yeah. Number 4, we need a running back. We need a good starting caliber bell cow running back. I don't think he has to be a superstar, but we need a good running back. And number 5, we've got to upgrade the punter position because we've got to play better field position with the team we have presently. Of course, the overarching cloud over all of this is we need to make a good head coaching hire. And I'm a little bit suspicious that Mr. Magoo won't do that. But nonetheless, it's been another fun video with you guys. It's been great talking to you. Please, once again, smash that subscribe button. Join the Phin-Addict Fury family. We love having everybody here. The conversations are good. I'm getting a lot of love from people online and whatnot. Love interacting with you guys. We're all Dolphins fans at the end of the day. Through thick and thin, no matter what happens, we're Dolphins fans. We'll continue to talk Dolphins. We'll continue to have a good dialogue between us. We'll continue to have a good dialogue between us and the other channels and to hear what they're saying and then give our take on it. And we'll continue to keep you updated on the latest Dolphins news, both through the videos and through the text posts. So keep your eye out now that I have the privilege of having text posts on YouTube. When news comes out and whatever else, and I'm not able to get on the mic right away, I'll be able to send out a post. So keep your eyes on the Phin-Addict Fury channel for those things. Once again, please subscribe. I'll talk to all of you very soon. See you in the comments. Larry K.
I know you heard me on the radio flexing. She loved the sound of my voice, it's the best thing. Daydreaming of the jazz all day.